What is the scariest, most terrifying thing that actually exists? Alzheimer's. Your memory, personality, and everything that makes you slowly slips away. It's a bad way to go. In college, I worked as an aide for a man who had it. He was a genius, worked for NASA, discovered stars. Sad to see. I'm going to see my grandmother next week for the first time in 3 years. I've been living abroad. After a fall last year, she entered an unusually rapid mental decline. Most times, she doesn't recognize her visitors, and rarely can sustain any lucid conversation. I'm glad to see her, but I'm already bracing for how it might be a pretty disappointing visit. Edit, my story is pretty common, it seems. Thanks for the encouragement, all. I figure whatever happens, it's good that I get at least one more chance to see her, and it'll be good to see my granddad, and the next day I'll go see my sister and her kids, one of whom I've never met at all, and it'll be a good week even if my grandmother isn't having a great day when I see her. Peace to all of you with relatives who are fading out of this world, and great, thanks to those of you who care for the elderly professionally. Facing these things with patience and hope brings us all a little closer. My mother doesn't know who I am anymore. It should upset me, but I find peace in being able to make her smile, make her laugh. If there are some old family jokes, give them a try. We used to sing "I Only Had a Drink" about an hour ago and it's gone right to my head. On family journeys. My ma can't speak properly but she gets the rhythm and will dance along. If something upsets you, don't take it to heart. I used to get upset but it's like all of us, we all change moods and say things when we're angry. Don't say it'll be disappointing, you're already on a downer. Think of how much she went though and she is still fighting. That's your blood, that's you. That's the power you have. Prions. They're basically screwed up proteins that make other proteins get screwed up the same way, like some sort of molecular zombie. Once you have a prion disease, it will slowly destroy your brain by messing up proteins that are vital for life. Once you have it, there's no cure and no treatment. You're just done for. And it can incubate for years, you can have it right now and not know. And as a fun little bonus, disinfectants and other methods of killing viruses, parasites and bacteria will do nothing for a prion. Fatal familial insomnia is possibly the freakiest prion disease. You just can't sleep. You get progressively worse insomnia until you can't sleep at all anymore, which causes delirium, hallucinations, and eventually death. Imagine just knowing your mind is slowly slipping away, all because your body won't sleep. That is a prion disease. If I remember correctly about fatal familial insomnia, even if DRS put you into an induced coma, your body will go into the coma state, however your brain will still keep firing as if it was awake. Jesus ducking Christ. I regret clicking on this ducking thread. If it's not some stream that's actually a river that's sideways, it's a plant or brain eating proteins. I miss when bears were scary. This plant, n.m.wikipedia.org/tl, Dr. Horses that touch it run off cliffs to stop the pain. I've been stung by this. Was hiking on Magnetic Island, near Townsville, QLD, Australia. Stepped over a rock and just felt pain. I thought I'd been bitten by a spider or something, one of the most intense localized pains I've ever had, even worse than when I tore a ligament in my elbow, which tore a chunk of bone off with it. It hurt for 3 months, and it continued to hurt for the next year every time I got it wet. Are there many warnings posted about its presence in the area, or would you have to be a local to know? There are warning signs at all international airports labeled "Welcome to Australia." Edit, thank for the gold anonymous donor, and the inbox spam everyone else. This comment now makes up most of my karma. The fact that you can be paralyzed and unable to move any part of the body while your mind remains completely intact. n.wikipedia.org. Horrifying. Bolton Street. A tiny stream in Yorkshire that's basically a river on its side. Only a meter or two across, and looks like a calm stream, but if you fall in it sucks you under and pulverizes you against the rocks. 100% mortality rate for people who try to jump it and fall in. Edit, quite a few people are having trouble visualizing what I meant by a river on its side. Umax3040 posted this below, it explains it quite well. YouTube.com. Yet you can step over it. Totally terrifying. When I was a kid I used to think about things like this, then one time in the desert in Utah I did one. Top of a giant plateau thing, it was one 3-foot step over a 500-foot drop. When was the last time you ducked up a single step? What was the last time there were consequences like that though? Spoiler, I did not mess up the step, or die. When I was a kid, we used to ride our bikes up and down the sides of a drainage ditch. One spring, I went out by myself and it was after a sudden spring rain. Everything looked normal, maybe a little damp, but it would still be fun riding. Went down one side, got stuck in the mud in the middle. Tried to struggle out and kept getting sucked in further. Eventually, I was buried vertically in 4 feet of mud, bike under me, before I found something to grab onto to pull myself out. My bike is still down there, 25 years later. Edit, from my reply to going and getting it. If anyone is up for it, here's the approximate coordinates, 42.94166678, minus 83.57845563. It's a black Huffy. I think it had 3 sprockets on the front and 5 on the back hub, so it would have been like a 15-speed bike? Something like that. Anyway, we used to play back there before they built a neighborhood, but it appears the drainage ditch is still there. And, I didn't get in a ton of trouble, surprisingly. My parents seemed more amused that I was covered from my feet to upper chest in mud. I dunno what they thought about me tracking it in the mudroom, though. Go get it. Whatever it is, it lives in the ocean. Deep in the ocean. As my brother-in-law says, the ocean is where God puts his nightmares. Anesthesia awareness: you go into the hospital for surgery and you are paralyzed and awake during the entire procedure. Unable to scream, move, or indicate in any way that you are locked in. As someone who is having surgery tomorrow. Thanks for that. What OP didn't include is that nearly all instances of anesthesia awareness last less than 5 minutes. Now that you're aware of it, you're also much less likely to be traumatized by it, since you know it's a possibility. If it does happen, just sit tight and try to stay calm and wait for it to pass. It's pretty rare, by the way. Also, it may be really hard to stay calm since you might feel like you're tripping or that you are having a spiritual or near-death experience. Just know that it will pass and you'll be back on Reddit soon enough. People that kill without a conscience or reason. You could be in the wrong place at the wrong time or even just asleep in your home, and someone could pick you for no reason at all other than opportunity. Pretty sure there was a post on Morbid Reality last week about someone who hired a hitman to kill a woman so she could date her boyfriend, but the hitman got the wrong person. And then killed her anyway. Imagine literally dying, because some loony wants to date someone else's boyfriend. God, I would haunt the shit out of those duckers. This case scares the crap out of me. A mother and her young daughter catch the eye of an ex-con while shopping at the grocery store. He tells his buddy, and together they commit an unspeakably brutal home invasion. Edit, HBO made a documentary about this case, called The Cheshire Murders. It includes a lot more details than the Wikipedia article. Brain-eating amoebas. Yup. We would do a lot of case studies in my parasitology course, and Naegleria fowleri was by far the worst to read about. It was the same terrible story over and over. Healthy individual in early 20s is out enjoying life, and goes wakeboarding, jet skiing, cliff diving etc. in warm fresh water. A little water gets up their nose, but other than that, they're fine. The next day they get a bad headache. They notice their sense of smell fade away completely. Then they slip into a coma and are dead before the week is out. It's absolutely the stuff of nightmares. This thread has really ducked with my head, because I was actually relieved to hear that it puts you in a coma. A little less painful than feeling the whole thing, hopefully. The supervolcano in Yellowstone, Wyoming that if it explodes, would make 13 of North America instantly uninhabitable and we would have to evacuate the rest. It would also create a volcanic winter for the whole planet for a couple of years. Fun fact, Yellowstone is caused by a hotspot under the Earth's crust and has been erupting regularly, from a geological standpoint, for the past 20 million years at least and has formed the entire Snake River Plain and then some. This includes Yellowstone National Park, craters of the Moon National Monument, which I really want to see, and the Columbia River flood basalts. This hotspot is why the geology and geography of the northwest United States and parts of southern Canada are so cool. If the Yellowstone caldera does erupt, it would probably be a smaller eruption. Even a small eruption from Yellowstone could still be quite devastating, but it wouldn't have catastrophic consequences. An eruption is incredibly unlikely, but a gigantic one is even less so. Cordyceps lethal mind control fungus. It only infects ants, as far as we know, but it's straight out of a horror movie. Infected ants compulsively climb as high as they can and then clamp their jaws down. Then a stalk grows out the top of their head and releases spores that infect more ants. The Last of Us infection is based on it. Correction, it affects lots of types of insects. I only remembered the ants initially. It's even worse, we've recently discovered that it doesn't zombify the insect, rather, the insect is still itself, and wants to fulfill its objectives, but the fungus has hijacked it to take the wheel. Flu would have been so much worse if you were slaughtering conscious humans. Since this blew up, I wanted to add that in the case of ants, the cordyceps work by essentially colonizing the muscle fibers of the ant. However, not all cordyceps work the same. Some of them grow in the brain, however they don't target specific areas, which means only part of it is affected while other parts may not be. It can be a slow and brutal process. Thank God it only affects bugs, and cordyceps can be enjoyed by humans for their adaptogenic qualities. Edited to reword conscious, since ants bugs don't have the neural complexity for actual consciousness, but at the time I didn't have a better word. Don't read it before bed. The runner infected would moan and cry out as if they were trying to apologize for eating your face. The clickers and bloaters were unable to communicate. Headcrab zombies in Half-Life scream in reverse, begging you to put them out of their misery and apologizing for attacking you. I'm super sad now, frown rip.